The Exile. Commander Lyra Voss of the Galactic Security Fleet stared at the holographic projection of Earth, a small blue planet spinning slowly before her eyes. Such an insignificant speck in the vast cosmos, yet somehow the source of the Council's greatest headache in 5 millennia. "You can't be serious," Lyra said, her compound eyes blinking in rapid succession as she addressed High Counselor Zev Tal. "You want to banish an entire species." Zev Tal's crystalline form pulsed with irritation. "Do I look like I'm making a joke, Commander? Have you read the reports?" "Of course I've read them," Lyra replied, her scales shifting to a deeper blue with frustration. The file was thicker than most species' entire historical archives. "But Exile is unprecedented." "So are they," Zev countered, gesturing to the display to bring up footage from the Altair incident. "Look at this. They were supposed to be negotiating a peace treaty, but instead they reprogrammed the Drell Empire's security network and turned their battle cruisers into what humans call modern art installations." Lyra finished the thought, while simultaneously transferring the Drell war chest to humanitarian aid projects across 3 sectors. "Precisely," said Zev Tal. "And remember the Proxima Diplomatic Summit." Lyra suppressed a smile. When Ambassador Krell tried to intimidate them by shapeshifting into that predator from their evolutionary history, and the human delegates simply pulled out what they call marshmallows and asked if anyone wanted to make s'mores, Zev Tal completed. The Krell Confederation withdrew from the Council in humiliation. Lyra moved to the viewport of the massive Council station. Earth hung like a blue marble in the distance. "They are unpredictable, yes, but creative and adaptable." "They are dangerous," Zev Tal insisted. "Their planet experienced more technological advancement in the last century than most species achieve in a millennium. Their media glorifies rebellion. Their most revered historical figures are troublemakers. Even their scientific progress stems from people who questioned established authority. So what's the plan? Just wall off their entire solar system. The isolation barrier will contain them until they either destroy themselves or mature enough to rejoin galactic society," Zev Tal explained. "The vote is already done, Commander. 26,000 council members for, only 7 against." "Let me guess," Lyra said dryly. "The Tyrell voted against it." "Of course. They find humans charming. The Tyrell would adopt a supernova if they could." Zev Tal waved a dismissive appendage. "Your fleet will establish the isolation barrier at the edge of their solar system tomorrow. The humans will be informed that they have been quarantined for their own safety. They won't believe that. It doesn't matter what they believe. The barrier will hold." Lyra wasn't so sure, but she knew better than to argue further. "Yes, High Counselor." As Zev Tal drifted away, Lyra turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Nexcora, a tall being with skin that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. "Nex, we need to prepare the fleet, and someone needs to deliver the message to the humans." Nex's face contorted into what passed for a grimace among his kind. "Delivering bad news to humans? I'd rather swim in the acid lakes of Vorish." "Scared, Lieutenant," Lyra teased. "Terrified," Nex admitted without shame. "You've seen what they did to the Mantis Armada, right? The Mantis threatened to bombard their planet unless they surrendered. The humans responded by hacking their communications and broadcasting something called, 'Never gonna give you up' on every frequency for 3 days straight. Half the Mantis command staff resigned." Lyra laughed despite herself. "Fine. I will deliver the message personally, assemble the fleet, and begin barrier preparations." 12 hours later, Lyra stood before the United Earth Council in New Geneva. The human representatives stared at her, with expressions ranging from shock to outrage to, "Was that amusement from the Eurasian representative?" "Let me get this straight," said Representative Maya Chen of the Pacific Alliance, leaning forward. "Your Galactic Council is putting us in timeout. The entire human race." "The official term is protective isolation," Lyra replied diplomatically. "Call it whatever fancy name you want, drawled Representative Jackson Miller of the North American Federation. "It's still a cosmic restraining order. The barrier will remain in place until humanity demonstrates sufficient maturity," Lyra continued, trying to maintain her composure. "Maturity?" Representative Oluwaseun Adeyemi of the African Union stood up, his voice sharp. "We have eliminated poverty on our planet, developed clean energy, cured most diseases, and established colonies on Mars and Europa. Meanwhile, your precious council still can't agree on standardized docking procedures after 5,000 years. Lyra's scales flushed deep purple with embarrassment. The human had a point. The dock protocol debate was entering its fourth millennium with no resolution in sight. "The decision is final," she said firmly. "The barrier goes up tomorrow. It will allow communication but prevent physical passage in either direction. And if we try to break through?" asked Representative Fatima Nazari of the Middle Eastern Alliance, her voice dangerously quiet. "The barrier is powered by 7 pulsars harnessed through dimensional folding," Lyra stated. "It cannot be breached with your current technology." The room fell silent. Then, to Lyra's surprise, Representative Miller started laughing. "Oh, honey," he said, wiping a tear from his eye. "You really shouldn't have told us that." "Excuse me." "Nothing says figure out how to break this to a human like it cannot be breached," explained Representative Chen with a wry smile. "You have just issued a challenge to an entire planet of people who crossed oceans because someone said it couldn't be done." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. "The Council's decision stands. You have 24 hours to recall any off-world citizens to your solar system." As she turned to leave, Representative Adeyemi called after her, "Commander, when you see us again, and you will, remember this moment." Back on her flagship, Lyra found Lieutenant Nex waiting anxiously. "How did they take it?" he asked. "Exactly as expected," she replied. "They are angry, defiant, and—" she hesitated. "And what, Commander? I think we might have made a terrible mistake." Nex's bioluminescent patterns flickered with confusion. "You think 26,000 council members are wrong." "I think," Lyra said carefully, "that we just told the most stubborn species in the galaxy that there's something they can't do. The barrier will buy us time, nothing more." As the massive fleet moved into position around Earth's solar system, Lyra gazed one last time at the small blue planet. Such an insignificant speck, yet somehow she couldn't shake the feeling that the Council had just awakened a sleeping giant. And she wasn't entirely sure whose side she was on. The years passed. 5, then 10, then 15. The barrier held, and the galaxy moved on, the quarantined solar system becoming little more than a footnote in Council records. Humanity's exile was considered a problem solved, a potential threat contained, until it wasn't. Tara Novak, chief monitor of the Sol Containment Zone, had the most boring job in the galaxy. Every day for 8 years, she'd sat in the same chair in the same monitoring station, staring at the same readings from the isolation barrier. Nothing ever changed. Another thrilling day in paradise, she muttered to her assistant, Zarin, a young amphibious Exiled who was still enthusiastic about their first deep space assignment. "I've been reviewing the energy signatures from the human system," Zarin said, their gill-like appendages fluttering with excitement. "There's something odd about them." "There's always something odd about them," Tara replied, not bothering to look up from her holographic puzzle. "Humans are odd. That's why they're in there, and we're out here." "No, I mean really odd," Zarin insisted. "The barrier is registering unusual fluctuations at regular intervals. It's almost like—" "Like what?" "Like they're testing it." Tara snorted. "They've been testing it for years. The barrier holds. End of story." At that moment, an alert chimed, then another, and another, until the quiet monitoring station was filled with the cacophony of 1,000 warning signals. What in the name of the 7 systems? Tara leaped to her feet, knocking over her precious puzzle. The main screen showed a catastrophic failure spreading across the isolation barrier, section by section, like dominoes falling. "That's impossible," Terra shouted. "The barrier is powered by 7 pulsars through dimensional folding," Zarin said, their webbed fingers flying across the controls. "And somehow, they've created a resonance cascade that's collapsing the entire system. We need to alert the Council. We need reinforcements. We need—" She never finished the sentence. The entire monitoring station shuddered as something massive emerged from what the humans called hyperspace directly in front of them. It was a ship, at least Terra thought it was a ship. It didn't look like any vessel she'd ever seen. It was sleek, almost predatory in design, with strange glowing lines pulsing along its hull. And it was enormous, dwarfing their monitoring station like a whale next to a minnow. "By the eternal void," whispered Zarin. "What is that?" The answer came moments later when their communication system activated on its own. A holographic figure appeared in the center of their command deck, a human female with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, wearing what appeared to be a uniform of some kind. "Greetings from the United Earth Alliance," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I am Admiral Amara Okafor of the UEA Pathfinder. It appears your barrier had a slight malfunction. Hope we didn't startle you." Terra could only gape in shock. Zarin recovered more quickly. How did you breach the barrier?" they asked. "Oh, that old thing." Admiral Okafor waved dismissively. "We could have broken through a decade ago, but we decided to use the time to innovate instead. Thanks for the uninterrupted research and development period. Very productive." Terra found her voice at last. "This is an outrage. The Council will—" "The Council will what?" interrupted the Admiral, her smile vanishing. "Put us in timeout again. We're not here to start a war, Monitor Novak. We're here to rejoin Galactic Society, on our terms." "That's not how it works," Terra sputtered. "It is now," replied Admiral Okafor. "While you've been containing us, we've been busy. We've colonized our entire system. We've developed technologies your Council hasn't even imagined. And we've made friends." "Friends?" Zarin echoed. "What friends could you possibly have made from inside the barrier?" The Admiral's smile returned. "You didn't really think a barrier that allows communication would keep us isolated, did you? The Tyrell have been quite chatty. So have the Axolti, the crystallines, and about 40 other species who felt the Council's decision was short-sighted." Terra collapsed back into her chair. "Treason," she muttered. "All of them. Traitors. Or visionaries," suggested Admiral Okafor. "Depends on your perspective." The return. The Grand Council chamber was a marvel of galactic architecture, a vast dome of transparent alloy that revealed the star-studded cosmos above, while thousands of delegates from across the galaxy sat in concentric rings, each tier representing different alliances, confederations, and empires. At the center stood the High Council podium, where the 7 most powerful members of Galactic Society determined the fate of worlds. Today, those 7 faces displayed varying degrees of shock, outrage, and disbelief as Admiral Amara Okafor stood before them, flanked by representatives from 40 different species, including, most shockingly, Commander Lyra Voss, now bearing the insignia of a Grand Admiral. High Counselor Zev Tal, ancient even by his species standards, his crystalline form dulled with age, sputtered with indignation. This is an abomination. Humans standing in the council chamber. Guards, arrest these escapees." The Council Guard, an elite force of the galaxy's finest warriors, didn't move. "They won't obey that order, Zev Tal," said Lyra calmly. "They answer to me now." "Treason," shrieked Zev Tal. "Mutiny. I will have you executed, Voss." A new voice joined the conversation, smooth and amused. "Oh, do shut up, Zev Tal. You've been threatening to execute everyone who disagrees with you for 3 centuries. It's gotten rather tiresome." All eyes turned to Counselor Thoralie of the Tyrell, a tall, elegant being with iridescent plumage. Unlike the other counselors, Sorelli seemed completely at ease with the human presence. "You," Zevtal pointed an accusing appendage. "You have been conspiring with them all along." "Conspiring implies secrecy," Sorelli replied with a casual wave of a feathered limb. "I've been quite open about my communication with Earth, as have the Exiled, the crystallines, and many others. We simply chose not to announce it to those who wouldn't approve." Sorelli's eyes gleamed mischievously. "Which was mainly you, Zevtal." Admiral Okafor stepped forward. "Esteemed counselors, I come before you not as an escapee or a rebel, but as an ambassador. The United Earth Alliance wishes to rejoin galactic society, to share our advancements, and to forge new partnerships across the stars." "Advancements," scoffed Counselor Drav of the Mantis hierarchy, his compound eyes narrowing. "What advancements could you possibly have made in isolation?" A subtle smile played across Admiral Okafor's lips. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." She nodded to a human officer standing nearby, a woman with intricate patterns glowing beneath her skin. "Commander Elena Reyes, Pathfinder Science Officer." Reyes tapped a sequence into her wrist device. Instantly, the center of the council floor transformed as a holographic projection appeared. But unlike any hologram the council had seen before, it was solid, tangible, with depth and substance that defied conventional physics. "Hard-like technology," explained Reyes, "a perfect marriage of energy and matter. We've used it to build colonies in the harshest environments of our system, create medical devices that can repair damaged tissue at the cellular level, and develop construction techniques that can raise cities in days rather than years." Murmurs of astonishment rippled through the chamber. "That's just the beginning," continued Admiral Okafor. "We've mastered quantum entanglement communication, allowing instantaneous transmissions across any distance. We've developed bioneural interfaces that allow direct mind-to-machine connection. And we've created a new form of faster-than-light travel that doesn't rely on traditional hyperspace corridors." "Impossible," declared Counselor Vex of the Hegemony. "No species could advance so rapidly without outside assistance. No species that plays by your rules," corrected Okafor. "You gave us the greatest gift possible when you isolated us, Counselor. You freed us from your bureaucracy, your ancient restrictions, your fear of change. We had no choice but to innovate or perish." Zevtal's crystalline structure pulsed with fury. "You expect us to believe that you developed all this technology on your own in mere decades. Necessity is the mother of invention," quoted Okafor, an old human saying. "When you cut us off from galactic trade and resources, we had to become self-sufficient. When you denied us access to established hyperspace routes, we had to find our own paths between the stars." "And that's not all they did," added Grand Admiral Lyra, stepping forward. "While the Council was busy maintaining the status quo, humans were forming alliances, quiet trade agreements with the Tyrell, cultural exchanges with the Exiled, scientific collaborations with the crystallines." "The crystallines." Zevtal turned to the crystalline representative, who stood tall under his gaze. "You betrayed the Council." The crystalline delegate, an elder named Seleth, straightened her translucent form. "We chose progress over stagnation, Counselor. The humans offered us new perspectives on dimensional physics that revolutionized our understanding of space-time. What would you have us do? Reject knowledge because of your fear?" Before Zevtal could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A squad of security officers rushed in, led by a flustered Mantis commander. "High Counselors," the Mantis shouted, "we have a situation. Human ships are appearing throughout Council space, hundreds of them, materializing without warning." A wave of panic swept through the chamber. Delegates rose from their seats, voices raised in alarm. Admiral Okafor remained perfectly calm. "There's no need for concern. Those ships are part of our diplomatic corps. They're establishing embassies at key locations throughout the galaxy. We believe in making a good first impression." "This is an invasion," Zevtal declared. "If we wanted to invade, Okafor replied coolly, "We wouldn't have announced ourselves. We certainly wouldn't be standing here asking for peaceful reintegration." "She speaks the truth," confirmed Lyra. "I've seen their capabilities firsthand. If humanity wanted war, this chamber would already be under their control." A heavy silence fell over the council. For the first time in millennia, the highest authority in the galaxy found itself at a crossroads, facing a power they could neither control nor fully comprehend. It was Councillor Xorali who broke the silence. "I move that we recognize the United Earth Alliance as a sovereign entity with all the rights and privileges of full council membership." "Seconded," said the Exiled councillor immediately. "You can't be serious," Zevtal protested. "They violated the isolation barrier. They infiltrated council space. They did exactly what any of us would have done in their position," interrupted a new voice. All eyes turned to Councillor Thalith of the Crystallines, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. The ancient being's crystalline form glimmered in the starlight as they rose from their seat. "For too long," Councillor Thalith continued, their voice resonating like wind through caves, "this council has governed through fear and control rather than wisdom and cooperation. We isolated humanity not because they were dangerous, but because they were different, because they challenged our comfortable assumptions about how the galaxy should work. I, for one, am tired of fearing change." Zevtal's crystalline structure dimmed in disbelief. "You too, Thalith. After all our millennia of partnership, it is precisely because of our long friendship that I speak now." "Zev," Thalith replied gently. "The galaxy is evolving. If the Council does not evolve with it, we will become irrelevant. The humans have not come to conquer us, but to join us, to help us grow beyond what we have been." "And if we refuse?" Zevtal demanded. "If we reject their so-called peaceful overtures?" Admiral Okafor's expression remained serene, but her voice carried throughout the chamber with unmistakable strength. "Then we will continue on our own path. We will trade with those who wish to trade with us. We will share knowledge with those who wish to learn. We will form alliances with those who recognize us as equals. The only difference will be that you will have chosen to exclude yourselves from the future we are building." Around the chamber, delegates were nodding, murmuring in agreement. The tide was turning, and everyone could feel it. Zevtal looked around desperately, seeking support that was rapidly evaporating. "This is madness. They will change everything." "That," said Sorali with a smile, "is precisely the point." The vote, when it came, was decisive. 26,000 council members for, only 7 against, a perfect inversion of the vote that had banished humanity 20 years earlier. As the session adjourned, Admiral Okafor approached Zevtal, who sat alone at the High Council podium, his crystalline structure dim with defeat. "This isn't the end of galactic civilization, Counselor," she said gently. "It's a new beginning." Zevtal looked up at her with ancient, tired eyes. "You don't understand. We built these structures, these rules, to prevent chaos, to maintain order. And in doing so, you nearly suffocated the very spirit of exploration and discovery that brought us all to the stars in the first place." Okafor replied. "There's a middle path, Counselor, order without stagnation, progress without chaos. We'd like you to help us find it." Zevtal's crystalline structure flickered in surprise. "You want my help?" "Of course. We may be innovative, but we lack your experience, your perspective, your wisdom. The future we envision includes everyone, even those who once feared us." For the first time in centuries, Zevtal found himself speechless. As Admiral Okafor turned to leave, he called after her. "Admiral, when you breached the barrier, how long could you have done that?" Okafor paused, then answered with perfect honesty. "We could have broken through after 5 years, but we decided to wait until we were ready to change the galaxy, not just rejoin it." As she walked away, Zevtal felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty, Yes, but also a flicker of something else, something that felt remarkably like hope. 5 years had passed since humanity's dramatic return to galactic society. The United Earth Alliance had become a central power in the reformed Galactic Union, and humans could be found on virtually every world, bringing their unique blend of creativity, adaptability, and irreverence to a civilization that had grown stagnant in its age. On the observation deck of the new Galactic Union headquarters, built with human hard-light technology and designed through a collaboration of 40 species architectural traditions, Lyra Voss stood beside Admiral Okafor, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the massive space station. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Lyra asked, her scales shifting to a thoughtful blue. Okafor smiled. "Not exactly like this, but I always knew we'd find our way back to the stars. It's in our nature. We don't do well with being told we can't do something." Lyra laughed. "I should have warned the Council about that particular human trait more forcefully." "Would it have made a difference?" "Probably not," Lyra admitted. "Some lessons have to be learned the hard way." Below them, in the grand atrium, representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled freely, exchanging ideas, forming new partnerships, forging a future that none of them could have imagined 20 years ago. "You know," Lyra said thoughtfully, "in all the ancient texts of my people, there's a prophecy about a species that would shatter the old order and forge a new path among the stars. For millennia, we assumed it referred to the crystallines, or perhaps the Tyrell. It never occurred to anyone that it might be talking about a species from a small blue planet on the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm." Okafor raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying we were destined to upend the galactic order?" "I'm saying," Lyra replied with a smile, "that perhaps the Council didn't exile you after all. Perhaps they simply gave you the space you needed to become what the galaxy needed you to be." Okafor considered this for a moment, then raised her glass in a toast to unintended consequences. Lyra raised her own glass, and to the species stubborn enough to turn exile into empire. As their glasses clinked, a new ship emerged from hyperspace in the distance, the latest marvel of human crystalline engineering, capable of traversing the galaxy in days rather than months. It was just one of countless innovations born from the collaboration that the old Council had feared so much. The exile was over. The empire, not of conquest but of cooperation, not of dominance but of innovation, had only just begun. And the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter for it.